to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky Duraeus. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky Duraeus, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite from February 22nd, 2023. We are on the road to the AEW Revolution pay-per-view coming to us from San Francisco, California at the Chase Center, March 5th on pay-per-view. And the card is shaping up to be one hell of a show, in my opinion. Has the build been great for the show? Not really, but I think that the show will deliver 110% in my opinion. Overall thoughts on this show, of course, the big story, that being Tony Khan's announcement, important announcement, not major or huge announcement like a lot of people speculated it was going to be, that being the announcement of AEW All Access. Yes, it's a new show that's going to be debuting right after AEW Dynamite next month, so I'm going to be talking about that right here on the review. We have Wheeler Yuta versus Orange Cassidy for the All-Atlantic Championship. We also have that amazing MJF and Bryan Danielson promo segment. Of course, that is leading up to their Iron Man match for the AEW World title at Revolution, which is going to be absolutely fantastic, in my opinion. We also got the AEW Tag Team Battle Royal, which you had Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal win the match, and they are added in the four-way match at the Revolution show. And, of course, we got the main event, that being Jon Moxley versus Evil Uno. Of course, this is in continuation for the build for the Texas Death Match between Jon Moxley and Hangman Page. This is their, I believe, third encounter or fourth encounter, I believe now. And it's going to be an absolutely fantastic match. But Jon Moxley and Evil Uno definitely delivered, in my opinion. But it had a lot of criticism at the same time with, of course, the usage of blood, which is a main topic when it comes to talking about AEW, primarily Jon Moxley, in which I will get to that later on right here on the show. But before we get on with everything AEW Dynamite, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. The link will be in the description below. And as I've stated earlier, Tony Khan had a major announcement, but I also have my own announcement. As you guys all know, Ring of Honor will be returning to their weekly television format. Yes, they will finally have their own weekly television show, but it's going to be on Honor Club that you got to pay $10 a month for. But no fear, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is here. I will begin covering Ring of Honor next week. Yes, the announcement is made. I will be covering Ring of Honor Wrestling, of course, that being next week, because Ring of Honor starts March 2nd, and I will be covering it on the Friday, the day after Ring of Honor debuts, March 3rd. I believe their tapings start this weekend, so I'm going to be covering Ring of Honor Wrestling, of course. Ring of Honor is on the road to their Supercard of Honor pay-per-view event that's taking place March 31st. It's going to be a great show overall, but I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on what I think about Ring of Honor and what the direction for Ring of Honor is going to be. So, starting March 3rd next week, I will be giving you guys Ring of Honor wrestling reviews right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Also, talking about reviews, if you guys haven't checked out the Raw review that I uploaded, it's doing very well in views. Of course, I talk about Kevin Owens refusing to help Sami Zayn against the Bloodline. Of course, this is in continuation of the Sami Zayn Bloodline storyline. Of course, we are on the road to WrestleMania 39, in which the main event is going to be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship. Overall, I will give you. I thought Raw was a fine show overall. There was a lot of good on the show, but at the same time, There was a lot of not so good on the show, but I gave you guys my thoughts on Raw right there on the Raw review. So if you guys haven't checked out the Raw review, the links will be in the description below. And so yeah, let's get on with AEW Dynamite. Before, let me turn off this intro. That's like a common occurrence right here on the show. Every time when I change, scenes on OBS, I completely forget to turn off my intro. My dumbass. But let's talk about AEW Dynamite. AEW Dynamite kicks off with Orange Cassidy defending his AEW All-Atlantic Championship against the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, Wheeler Yuta, of course, a part of the Blackpool Combat Club. Some little bit of story resemblance here because of the fact that, of course, Wheeler Yuta was once a part of the Best Friends, but then later defected to the Blackpool Combat Club last spring, in which I thought was a very good story that they told about Wheeler Yuta. Of course, Wheeler Yuta had that amazing, and I mean amazing ass match against Jon Moxley on that one Rampage episode, back when Rampage actually had some good shit. Granted, they still put on banger matches, but let's be realistic with one another. Do you watch Rampage? I really don't give a crap about Rampage, to be quite honest with you. But overall, I thought Wheeler Yuta versus Orange Cassidy was a great match. They definitely delivered. A lot of people on social media called this a pay-per-view quality match, and honestly, I cannot blame you guys. This was definitely a pay-per-view quality match. A lot of people tend to criticize Orange Cassidy, and I talk about this week in and week out when it comes to AEW Dynamite. A lot of people tend to criticize Orange Cassidy a lot because of the way he wrestles and his comedic styles. But if you really think about it, Orange Cassidy really sets himself apart from a lot of other people. And whenever that bell rings, when he goes in action, he will go in action. And that is exactly what he delivered in this match against Wheeler Yuta for the All-Atlantic title. But let's get on with the match. In the beginning of the match, Orange Cassidy offers a handshake, but then Yuta thinks about it, but then tries to slap him, but then Cassidy ducks. We get a roll-up and a near fall. Both basically go technical and do a bunch of roll-ups later on. After that, Yuta is on the outside. Cassidy tries to put his hands in his pockets, but then Yuta comes in. We get a sweep by Yuta and works on the right knee of Cassidy. Cassidy is on Yuta's shoulders, but then Cassidy escapes. Yuta goes for the roll-up attempt, but we get a near fall. Yuta once again goes for the roll-up, but then we get a near fall again. Then we get an arm drag rollover, by Cassidy. Cassidy then goes for the seatbelt pin, which is a very integral pin attempt throughout this entirety of the match. Excalibur mentions actually on commentary that the pinfall that Cassidy just did on Wheeler Yuta is the exact pin attempt that Yuta always does in his matches. Yuta then goes to the outside, but then Cassidy is in the ring. And then Claudio Castagnoli, yes, the Ring of Honor World Champion, comes out, and he faces off with Wheeler Yuta, basically motivates him by slapping the shit out of Wheeler Yuta. And then Yuta goes back in the ring. Yuta goes for the waistlock, and then we get a thumb to the eyes, or I should say he bites the eyes, not a thumb to the eye. He bites the eyes of Orange Cassidy. Yuta then fires back with a lariat. Cassidy is then on the outside, but then he goes for the suicide dive, that being Wheeler Yuta going for the suicida. Then Yuta takes Cassidy to the barricade. He throws him over to the timekeeper's table and then rolls over the table on Cassidy. Claudio then leaves. Yuta then takes Cassidy to the ring post, and then we get a chop by Yuta on Orange Cassidy. After that, Cassidy then puts his hands in his pockets, but then Yuta slaps and chops him repeatedly because Yuta is having none of this bullshit. Cassidy then rolls over. We get a chop by Yuta on Cassidy, but then Cassidy goes for his amazing. And you guys know how I talk about right here on the Dynamite Review every week about how amazing Orange Cassidy's kicks are. So Cassidy goes for his amazing kicks. We get a rolling elbow by Wheeler Yuta, but then Cassidy counters with the shotgun dropkick, taking Yuta to the corner. After that, Yuta takes Cassidy to the corner, but then Cassidy goes over the top, landing on the apron. Cassidy then repeatedly sends Yuta headfirst onto the turnbuckle pad. He goes to the top, but then he gets caught by Yuta. Yuta then goes for the enziguri. After that, Yuta is in the corner. He goes to the top, and then he hits an elbow strike. Yuta goes for the baseball dropkick later on, taking Cassidy to the outside. Once we go to commercial break, throughout the whole commercial break, Yuta is in control. Once we're back, Yuta then is still in control over Orange Cassidy. Yuta then goes to the top, but then he misses a diving splash attempt. Orange Cassidy then goes for the orange punch, but then gets caught by Wheeler Yuta after that. Both then exchange shots back and forth. Yuta then counters a DDT attempt by Orange Cassidy by picking him up and hitting the Brainbuster. After that, he slams Cassidy on his back. We get a cover by Yuta and a near fall. We get repeated stomps onto the head of Cassidy by Wheeler Yuta. Cassidy then hits. He goes for a couple of kicks. After that, Cassidy gets up on his feet. Cassidy then hugs Yuta, but he actually hugs Yuta, but then Yuta actually fires back with a headbutt. So that was actually a pretty decent moment in the whole match. Then Yuta drives his fist on the head of Cassidy. After that, Cassidy picks him up, but then Yuta escapes. He gets taken to the outside, but then comes back. Cassidy then takes him out again, but then Yuta once again goes after him. He holds onto the ropes and comes back. We get a waistlock by Yuta and hits a German suplex. Cassidy then actually switches, and then Cassidy goes for the German suplex of his own, so that was actually a nice moment in the match. Cassidy then goes for the roll-up after that. We get a near fall. Yuta then goes for, of course, Cassidy went for the seatbelt pin attempt. Yuta now this time goes for the seatbelt pin attempt. We get a near fall. At this point, we get a standing ovation by the crowd in Phoenix. And there's one thing that I can say about this show. I believe this is the first time that AEW was in the Phoenix market. Phoenix, you guys are absolutely amazing. The crowd in Phoenix was absolutely fantastic. We get a standing ovation by the crowd. Then Yuta spits in the face of Orange Cassidy. But what does Orange Cassidy do in retaliation? Orange Cassidy spits back. Both exchange elbow strikes, but then both men take each other out by clotheslining each other. At this point, both men are down. Cassidy then takes Yuta for the beach break attempt, but then Yuta goes to the apron. He then grabs the ear of Orange Cassidy, but then Cassidy counters Yuta with a backdrop onto the apron. At this point, Yuta is on the floor. We get a diving DDT by Cassidy onto the floor, and once we're back in the ring, Cassidy goes for the DDT. After that, Cassidy takes Yuta for the beach break, but then Yuta hits the pile driver. We get a cover and a near fall. He then drives his elbows on Cassidy, and then he tries to go for the seatbelt pin attempt once again, but then Cassidy counters by driving his elbows on him. After that, Wheeler Yuta and Orange Cassidy go counter after counter. Yuta goes for the roll-up, and then we get a near fall after that. Cassidy then comes back with the orange punch. We get a cover and another near fall. And then Cassidy goes for the beach break. We get a cover once again by Orange Cassidy, and we get another near fall. Cassidy then goes for a second orange punch after that. We get a cover by Orange Cassidy, and Orange Cassidy retains his AEW All-Atlantic Championship. After the match, Cassidy basically tries to pick up Wheeler Yuta. Both men are up. He tries to hug Wheeler Yuta best friend style, but then what happens? Claudio Castagnoli comes back out, and he basically demands that Wheeler Yuta comes back to Claudio Castagnoli. And after that, Yuta just retreats Orange Cassidy and just leaves the ring. And yeah, where is this leading to? We have absolutely no idea, but I'm really digging this seriousness of Claudio Castagnoli. Now, granted, Claudio was always serious at what he does, but like this demanding version of Claudio Castagnoli that he's, telling Wheeler Yuta, hey, don't do that bullshit. You are with the Blackpool Combat Club. I kind of like that. I'm still an advocate for the Blackpool Combat Club. I don't understand what the hate is of the Blackpool Combat Club. Could have gone in another direction, yes, but for what they have, I'm actually very much enjoying what they're doing with the BCC. But overall, this opening match between Wheeler Yuta and I was about to say Claudio Castagnoli, Orange Cassidy for the All-Atlantic title was definitely great. We really need to start thinking who is going to be taking that title away from Orange Cassidy. It's great that Orange Cassidy has that belt, but let's be 100% real with ourselves. Who is going to be taking that All-Atlantic Championship from Orange Cassidy? That is a very interesting question that I feel like AEW definitely needs to figure out. And there are a lot of contenders that can take that title off of Orange Cassidy. You got guys like Konosuke Takeshita. You got guys like Roosh, who's like literally on a tear right now. If you guys haven't watched his match with Bryan Danielson, trust me, watch that shit. You guys know what I'm talking about. Again, there's a lot of people that could take that belt off of Orange Cassidy. And if you really want to solidify that All-Atlantic title, yeah, you put it on a guy like Orange Cassidy, but I feel like when you have somebody, whoever it is, that takes the belt away from Orange Cassidy, it should be treated as a much bigger deal. Evil Uno, of course, backstage, preparing for his match against Jon Moxley. Hangman says that he doesn't need to prepare for Mox, or I should say, you don't prepare for Mox. Hangman says that he doesn't want to get involved with Jon Moxley and Evil Uno, and then Uno says every time he says that, he means Dark Order is not on his level. No matter what happens in that match, from bell to bell, he doesn't want to get involved. It's time to stand up for themselves, and tonight Mox will find out exactly why his name is Evil Uno. Great stuff, by the way. And by the way, the match between Evil Uno and Jon Moxley was absolutely fantastic. It was a great showing by Evil Uno. I believe after the show was over, when Evil Uno was about to leave the ring, the crowd was chanting Evil Uno's name. That goes to show you how the fans love Evil Uno after that great match that he had with Jon Moxley. I'll talk about that later on right here on the review. Next, we got the Ricky Starks segment, of course. Ricky Starks coming off a couple of weeks ago off a fresh win against Chris Jericho. Ricky Starks, someone that basically wants a rematch against Jericho, a guy he already beat. I don't know why. I never really understood that logic. How do you beat somebody and then all of a sudden just want a rematch against them even though you already beat them already? I never really understood that. But hey, man, that's what they did. So I don't know why that was the case, but it was what it was. But overall, what are my thoughts on this segment? It was a really good segment. Of course, they're going to be doing Ricky Starks versus Chris Jericho at Revolution, and there was a stipulation added. Of course, the stipulation is, after the segment was, the JAS are banned and will stay backstage and will not get involved in this match. So let's talk about this segment. So Ricky Starks comes out. He says he can't keep them chanting Ricky's name because then they will get mad at him for going overtime. But he gets down to the chase. It ain't no secret that the past few months he dealt with a lot of interference from the Jericho Appreciation Society. And to him, the message is very clear. He doesn't want a rematch, or I should say Chris Jericho does not want a rematch against him, and he accepts that. He will move on from Chris Jericho. But what he has right here is an open contract for a match against him at Revolution. And as his theme song says, the Revolution is televised, so he will be damned that he will be left off this pay-per-view card. He knows someone is itching to get on this card, and he calls out whoever to come out to challenge Ricky Starks and sign the contract for a match at Revolution. Then what happens? Chris Jericho, yes, the Ocho, the Demo God, the Champion, he comes out. And he says he knows what he is trying to do. He is trying to bait him by having another match with him. He says he is over and he is done with Chris Jericho, but he is not done with Jericho unless Chris Jericho says he is done. And that's okay. Count his blessings. He beat Jericho, and it was the highlight of his career. Take it and put it in a little box, and by his nightstand, you look at it every night when you go to sleep. And he tells him that will never happen again. He can beat him, that being Jericho stated, that Jericho can beat Ricky Starks basically anytime, any place, anywhere, but it is never going to happen because he is not on his level. So good luck with that open challenge, and he hopes it goes out well for him. And after that, a random wrestler comes out, that being the former librarian, Peter Avalon. Yes, back in 2019, he was known as the librarian along with Leva Bates. Peter Avalon comes out, and it looks like he wants to challenge Starks, but then Jericho immediately hits him with the Judas effect. Then Chris Jericho comes to the ring, and then he kind of pulls a little nod at this point about the old List of Jericho. Yes, back in 2016. Y'all remember the List of Jericho? Good times. Jericho comes to the ring, and he states, see what happens when he wants an open challenge? Everyone will walk here. And they want Jericho so bad, he can't have Revolution without Chris Jericho, the Demo God. Maybe he should take that contract and have a rematch with him and embarrass him. And then Starks replies and asks him this. As Chris Jericho, the first AEW World Champion, the guy who beat two legends in one night. Of course, he's referring to Vengeance 2001 when he beat Jericho, or not Jericho, when Jericho beat Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock at the same night. The guy who beat two legends at one night, he did that all by himself, right? He doesn't need why he keeps seeing the JAS unless he thinks he can't probably beat him. And he just thinks he's in it to get the job all done by himself. Jericho then asks him if he is telling that he can't beat him one-on-one. And then Starks says, nah. Starks genuinely believes that he can actually beat him. But then Jericho snatches the contract away from him. And then Jericho says he is damn right he can beat him one-on-one. And because he is the great Chris Jericho. He is Le Champion, one of the best to ever do this. And of course, he can beat Ricky Starks. And he would sign this contract. He would, even though, he would even write down that the JAS is banned from ringside. They would stay in the back. He would do it right here, right now, except And this was actually a funny-ass line by Chris Jericho. It was the most simplest line, but it was so effective. But he doesn't have a pen. Yeah, he doesn't have a pen. And I actually liked this moment right here. So after he stated he doesn't have a pen, Ricky Starks was like, damn. Basically, of course, Jericho's trying to avoid Ricky Starks. And then Starks pulls out a pen and says, here, he has a pen. And then Jericho just has him with his like pissed off look on his face. And then Jericho grabs the pen and he does this. Of course, that's a little nod right there to the list of Jericho from back in 2016, which is basically one of my favorite versions of Chris Jericho. And then after that, he writes that the JAS stays in the back, and then he signs his name, and it is official. We will be getting Chris Jericho versus Ricky Starks at Revolution. And Jericho tells him that he basically tells Ricky Starks, be careful what you wish for, because remember, nobody outsmarts the Ocho. And he gives the contract to Ricky, and then Ricky Starks smiles. So, yeah, that was the segment. Overall thoughts on this segment. This was a very, very, very good segment in my opinion. Even though I didn't like the fact that Ricky Starks beat Chris Jericho in the first match that they had, I believe it was in the first Dynamite of this year, and all of a sudden, Ricky Starks just wants a rematch with Chris Jericho for no reason, even though he beat him already. I didn't really like that portion of the match, but I believe in the first match. I got to watch that match back. I believe there was some involvement with JAS, and I feel like they want to have Chris Jericho and Ricky Starks really just go at it one-on-one with no interferences whatsoever, and I feel like that's why they're doing the rematch at Revolution. Personally, what I would have done, I would have had Jericho basically beat Ricky Starks in their first match, and then, of course, you build up Ricky Starks more for the rematch eventually at Revolution in order for Ricky Starks to beat Chris Jericho. But we do not know what they're going to be doing with Ricky Starks, but overall, I think Ricky Starks and Chris Jericho are going to deliver an absolute banger, in my opinion. I think the match is going to be fantastic for what it is, and I think Chris Jericho is just going to deliver. I think they're going to deliver. I don't want to say a match of the year match, but I mean the caliber of talent that Chris Jericho is, and the same thing as Ricky Starks. These two are not capable. I'm being honest; they are not capable of having a bad match. These guys, every time when they get in the ring, they deliver 110%, and that is exactly what they will be doing at Revolution when they wrestle in their match. But yeah, we will be getting Chris Jericho versus Ricky Starks at Revolution. We got Lee Moriarty and Big Bill versus the Acclaimed. A relatively short match. Of course, the Acclaimed will be in the four-way at Revolution for the AEW Tag Team titles against Austin and Colton Gunn, who are the current AEW Tag Team champions, plus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, who won the tournament later on in the show. The match starts. Caster and Lee Moriarty start. We get a side headlock by Caster. We get a shoulder tackle by Caster, followed by an arm drag. He works on the left arm of Lee Moriarty, but then Bill goes for the knee onto the back of Caster. After that, we get Scissor Zona chants by the crowd in Phoenix, Arizona, which was great to see. Lee Moriarty later on regains control, but then Bowens tags in. He hits a backbreaker, and then we get a cover by Bowens and a near fall. We go to a commercial break, but then the Guns show up during the break. Then, once we're back from break, Big Bill is in control over Max Caster. After that, Bill misses the elbow drop and then misses and lands into the corner. Bowens and Lee Moriarty both tag in. We got a couple of right hands by Bowens, and then we get repeated kicks by Bowens. He drops Lee down, and then he picks him up, and then he drops Lee face first. And then Big Bill comes in, and then he hits a thrust kick by Bowens. Or I should say Bowens hits a thrust kick. Big Bill enters the fray. But then, after that, Bowens scissors Billy Gunn, but then Big Bill boots Billy Gunn, taking him to the outside. Caster then drives Big Bill onto the barricade, but then Colton Gunn comes in and right-hands his father. After that, the Guns go after Billy, but then Caster chases the Guns. After that, Caster sends Bill to the post, but then once we're back in the ring, he hits a clothesline on Bowens, and then he picks him up and flatlines him to the mat. We get a cover and a near fall. At this point, Lee Moriarty misses a kick, but then Anthony Bowens goes for the backslide. We get a near fall, but then Bowens later hits the arrival. Caster tags in, he goes to the top, and then he hits the mic drop. And then we get a cover, and the Acclaimed get the win. It was a pretty random match, in my opinion. Of course, this is going to be building up to the four-way match for the tag team titles at Revolution. Overall, it was a pretty good match. I thought Lee Moriarty and Big Bill looked great, but of course, it was all about the Acclaimed. All right, we got Tony Schiavone interviewing Christian Cage, who made his return last week and basically beat the shit out of Jungle Boy. It's great to see Christian Cage back because, if anything, there's one thing that you could say about Christian Cage is Christian Cage is an absolute heel magnet. This guy is such a savage on the microphone, like it's not even funny. It is like this guy is a menace on the microphone. He does not give a single shit what he says. But Cage made his return last week, of course. But before Cage would even speak a word on the microphone, what would happen? Jungle Boy attacks Christian Cage from behind. He drives his elbow onto the back of his head, and then Jungle Boy leaves. But then he comes back out and has 2 chairs. And once a wrestler has 2 chairs, you already know what the hell they're going to be doing. And of course, I'm referring to the one and only Concerto. He takes Cage and wants to hit the Concerto, but he is taking constantly his time. And then as soon as he's about to hit him with the chair, what happens? Cage sees all of this, what's going on, and it looks like he's about to get hit with the chair, but catches Jungle Boy and hits the low blow. Then he hits the chair that was below him. This is actually very smart, and actually hit Jungle Boy onto the midsection. After that, he drags Jungle Boy and drives him face first to the chair repeatedly. At this point, Jungle Boy is busted open, and this is not our first seeing of blood, not only in AEW, but on this show. And then he stands tall by stomping onto the head of Jungle Boy. So most likely, I feel like what they're going to be doing is they're going to be doing a one-on-one match between Christian Cage and Jungle Boy at Revolution to finally blow off this feud. Overall, I thought this feud was actually pretty good. I remember when Christian Cage first turned heel at, I believe it was Road Rager last year. Like the heat that Christian Cage got was insane. Not only that, the promos that this man cut, like, Christian Cage is the type of wrestler that does not give a shit if he goes personal. He really doesn't. He is such a good heel on the mic. I could even go as far as to say he is such a good heel as MJF. And I know that sounds a little far-fetched, but if you really think about it, Christian Cage on the microphone is literally a fucking savage and a fucking menace. This man is absolutely crazy. And I'm very excited to see what they are going to be doing regarding this feud in the future. We got a video package on Samoa Joe and Wardlow. Of course, Samoa Joe and Wardlow are going to be wrestling for the TNT Championship at Revolution. Talks about how he cut the hair of Wardlow to take away his beloved connection that he had with his father. And he says, come Revolution, Wardlow made the biggest mistake, and that mistake was stepping into the ring once again with the king of television, Samoa Joe. We got Saraya versus Sky Blue. Overall thoughts on this match. This was a pretty quick match overall. We all know the direction most likely on where this whole storyline is going to. A lot of people, and I talked about this on previous Dynamite reviews, a lot of people are speculating that this could possibly lead to a homegrown versus established blood and guts match, the first ever women's blood and guts match. We do not know. But so far, what are my thoughts on the work that Saraya and Toni Storm are doing? Honestly, in my opinion, I just don't really feel the hype around Saraya and Toni Storm because, you know, and it really boils down to the spray paint. You know, a lot of the stuff that they've been doing. Look, I like Saraya and Toni Storm, but the one thing, man, that bothers me every week about them is the usage of the spray paint. And it's not even revolving around the NWO. It's not even that. You can use spray paint, but don't make it to the point where it looks so cringe on television, in my opinion. Like, the whole spray paint thing just, I don't know why, just kind of pisses me off. But I feel like right now, you know, I feel like there is a direction for the storyline. I just don't think it's going to escalate right now, and they're taking their time. But honestly, right now, I'm not really into what they are doing here. Like, maybe I will a month down the line. Maybe it will go, like, it will escalate much further down the line. But right now, I feel like right now it's not really the main focus on the show. But Saraya and Sky Blue wrestled the match. Sky Blue did get a couple of offense in the match. She goes into the face of Sky Blue, and she takes Saraya into the corner. Sky goes to the top, but then Toni Storm comes in on the apron. Saraya comes in and then hits repeated stomps on Sky Blue. Blue then gets taken to the outside, but then Toni Storm interferes. And while the referee was actually distracted, Toni Storm actually suplexed Sky Blue onto the floor. After that, Saraya then sends her to the barricade and then takes her back into the ring. We got a cover by Saraya and a near fall, but then Saraya continues to work on Sky Blue. After that, Sky Blue applies a submission, but then Saraya plants her to the mat. We get a cover and a near fall, but then Blue is on the middle rope. Saraya then comes in, and then we get repeated rights by Saraya. Sky Blue then tries to fight back, but then Sky Blue goes for the crossbody. We get a cover and a near fall, followed by a knee strike by Sky Blue. And then she hits the drop kick. After that, we get a cover by Toni Storm, or actually not a cover by Toni Storm. We get a cover by Sky Blue, but then what happens is Toni Storm distracts the referee. We get a Sky then takes down Storm, but then Saraya goes for the thrust kick. And then Saraya applies the submission, but then Saraya gets the win. After that, the heels want to spray paint Sky Blue, but then what happens? Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker come in for the save, and then the heels leave the ring. But what happens? Ruby Soho comes in, and she basically targets Jamie Hayter, even though Jamie Hayter was there. It looks like she wants the women's championship, and it was actually announced that it's going to be a three-way match at Revolution for the AEW Women's World Title, and it's going to be Jamie Hayter versus Ruby Soho versus Saraya for the women's title. That is going to be a very interesting match, in my opinion. I think they're going to deliver an absolute banger in that match, and maybe, who knows, something big could possibly happen in that match. But yeah, that was the women's match. We got probably, arguably, in my opinion, the best thing on this show, and that is, of course, Bryan Danielson and MJF. Everything about this segment was pure perfection. I absolutely enjoyed everything that they did on this segment because of the fact that, a lot of people tend to criticize AEW because there's quote-unquote no stories, especially after this whole Bloodline and Sami Zayn storyline that has been escalating, and it's arguably the hottest thing in all of wrestling right now. AEW has storylines, okay? AEW has storylines, and if you're honestly in denial of that, then I don't know what to tell you. You clearly do not know what a storyline is. Now, are there storylines right now as effective and more investful, if that's the right terminology to use, than WWE's Bloodline storyline? No, they're not. The Bloodline storyline is probably the best thing that WWE has done in the last 10 years. Not only that, as I've stated earlier, it is the best thing in wrestling. But you cannot sit here and tell me that MJF and Bryan Danielson has no story, because it clearly does have story. Everything about this promo segment was utterly fantastic. It was really good, and I love the way that they did it. The one thing I always say, man, the haters that MJF constantly gets, like the haters that he constantly gets all the time, it is fucking insane. Because a lot of people view MJF as, he only gets cheap heat, blah, blah, blah. And to the people that always say, he always gets cheap heat, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Doesn't every heel do cheap heat? Clearly, every heel in the WWE does cheap heat, or at least most of the heels do cheap heat. MJF is arguably the best heel in the business, period. And a lot of fans are after this segment, or I should say after the match that they are going to have at Revolution, a lot of fans are going to shut the fuck up after that. But let's talk about this segment. Bryan Danielson starts. He says, "Boy, it is great to be back in Phoenix, Arizona." And we get a bunch of yes chants from the crowd. And he says, "Man, it seems like they want him to win the AEW World Championship at Revolution. Well, trust him. He will do everything in his power to beat MJF for that title. But first, he wants to talk about what MJF said last week." MJF came out and says that he hates Bryan Danielson. So let him get this straight. He tries to break the arm of his best friend for over 20 years, and he hates him. Let him get this straight. He puts a bounty on his head and injure him so he wouldn't even make it to the pay-per-view, and he hates him. MJF then hospitalizes his mentor, William Regal, and he hates him. And then all of a sudden, MJF's music hits, and MJF comes out. But MJF has a serious look on his face. So once he has a serious look on his face, you know shit's going to go down. So he comes out. And after that, he says, he tells Bryan that he may have all these schmucks, referring to the fans, that all their minds are twisted, but he knows who he really is, and he knows who himself is. And he's the guy who was left stranded by anyone that ever opened up to, everyone that he's ever opened up to. He is the guy that got thrown away like trash by whoever claimed that they loved him. And then he met a girl, someone who changed his outlook on every single person on this planet. His dream girl, a girl he fell in love with. She convinced him that not everyone in this world is bad. So he was the man who got down on one knee and told her that he wanted to start a family with her. He wanted to make a home with her and wanted to have children with her. And you know what she did? She left him. And then we get a bunch of "you deserve a chance" by the crowd in Phoenix, Arizona. And he says the only things in this world that give him unconditional love, or I should say the only thing that gives him unconditional love in this world, is the Triple B, the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Because the AEW World title is the only thing stopping him from grabbing a fistful of pills and calling it a day. Not him. Everyone loves the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Everyone looks up to him and respects him. They throw their hands up in the air and scream yes at the top of their lungs. They throw their hands up in the air and scream yes at the top of their lungs. And if that wasn't bad enough, he has something that that being MJF, will never have. And that is family. A beautiful, smart, adoring wife, 2 happy and healthy children, and he takes all of that for granted. And you want to know why he hates him, Bryan? It's because these schmucks think that he is better than him, and come March 5th, they will know that that ain't the truth. He hates him because he had more concussions and had more head trauma more than anyone in the history of this business. He suffered concussion after concussion until he is on the floor, foam streaming down his face, having seizures, and that he is still in this sport. Every time he steps foot in that ring, he is saying wrestling is more important than his family and children. And every time he steps foot in the ring, he is spitting in his face. Because he is taking everything he would do, or everything he would do, for granted. He is no different than his worthless, drug-addicted mentor, William Regal, he gladly sent to the hospital. Matter of fact, Bryan, he is worse because he is addicted to the spotlight. But guess what? On March 5th at Revolution, he is going to have the spotlight he needs in the Iron Man match because he is going to punish him. He is going to punish him for trying to take away the one thing that he has in his life and punish him for everything that he has been taken for he has taken for granted. And then he wants to take a chance and speak to his children watching at home. Now, at this point, MJF goes freaking personal. He points to the camera, I should say. He looks at the camera. At this point, Bryan Danielson gets so pissed off, and he tells MJF not to dare to speak to his children, or else he's going to get the shit kicked out of him. MJF turns towards the camera, and of course, this image of MJF is exactly what I am talking about right here. Right there in that image you guys are seeing right now. Bryan Danielson gets pissed, and MJF says, "Hi, Birdie. Hi, Buddy," which are the names of Bryan Danielson's children. "It's Uncle Maxie. He just wanted to let them know that on March 5th at Revolution, he's going to make Dada pay for all of his selfishness. He's going to grab his arm and rip it out of the sockets until he submits. And then he will make sure Dada will never play with them again." And then we get a bunch of asshole chants by the crowd in Arizona. "For 1 hour straight, he will make sure that Dada will never pick them up again." And then Uncle Max will take his fist and hit Dada over and over and over again with that fist. And then he will give him a present on March 5th. And he goes in the ring and he asks, "You kiddies want to know what that gift is?" And the line that MJF states, he says, "Early onset CTE." And as soon as Maxwell finishes the CTE line, Bryan Danielson immediately goes for the attack. Then both men brawl in the ring. Security comes in, and then they separate them. And then Bryan takes Maxwell to the outside. Then the security guards just separate them. MJF retreats to the outside, and then Danielson is getting held back by security. But then Danielson runs to the outside, and he runs to Max and hits a furious right hand, and he continues to go after MJF, and security tries to pull Bryan Danielson away from MJF. and that was that segment. What are my thoughts on this segment that transpired on AEW Dynamite? Everything about this segment was pure perfection. And I know I throw that term a lot, especially regarding the whole Bloodline and Sammy stuff, but everything about this segment really explains to you why, these guys are going to deliver an absolute clinic at Revolution. Again, MJF has all of his fucking haters. I do not know why. Again, you have a lot of people constantly say he gets cheap heat, but I always ask these people, doesn't every heel give cheap heat all the time? You know what I'm saying? MJF, yes, he gives cheap heat, but every time when MJF is on the microphone, he has your attention. He wants your attention. And every time when he's on the microphone, you listen because he's going to say some fucked up shit. And that is exactly what he said in this promo. And that's what makes MJF such a good heel. People are really going to be absolutely silent once the Iron Man match at Revolution is going to be over. I am telling you this right now because the Iron Man match is going to be probably one of the best matches of the whole year. And MJF is going to look 10 times stronger into this match. If you really think about it, a lot of people tend to criticize MJF for, only focusing on his promos and not his wrestling skills. People need to realize that MJF can wrestle. Once that bell rings, if it's a match that is very important, this man will literally fucking go all out. Just look at the matches that he's had with guys like Wheeler Yuta, with guys like CM Punk. This man with Darby Allin. Remember the match that he had with Darby Allin back at Full Gear back in 2021? I'm telling you this right now. MJF can fucking go. And you still have MJF deniers, man. I'm telling you this right here and right now. Once that Revolution Iron Man match is over, people are going to shut the fuck up. They are going to be silent and be like, damn, holy shit. We were wrong about MJF because MJF is clearly a star here. And he really is. MJF is absolutely amazing at his job. And hats off to Bryan Danielson as well. Bryan Danielson, if you really think about it, Bryan Danielson has been doing wonders for MJF in my opinion, and he's gonna make MJF look very, very, very strong once we head into this Iron Man match. So overall thoughts on this segment. This segment was absolutely fantastic, and the Iron Man match is going to be a match for the fucking ages. We got a backstage interview with Jamie Hayter, who is, of course, the current AEW Women's World Champion. She says that they are pissed and says Saraya is getting a little too big for her bridges for her liking. And she thinks that she can walk in here and destroy everything that her and Britt and everybody else built here in AEW. She does not like that. Maybe she is worthy, and she hasn't lost one match, and she respects that. But look what she has done. She's ruined everything from the ground up, and she thinks someone else is deserving. And she says, Miss Ruby Soho. Ever since she came back, she's busted her ass and showed everyone why she deserves a shot at the women's title. She doesn't care who challenges her since she has to choose one or the other, but she wants to have fun at Revolution, and she wants to make it a three-way, and she's going to beat both of them bitches, and none of them are going to take that title away from her. So yeah, we are going to be having a three-way match at Revolution. It's going to be absolutely fucking awesome. That's all I'm going to say about that. We got the AEW Revolution Tag Team Battle Royal. I'm not really going to get deep into this. Overall, it was a pretty good Battle Royal. Pretty good eliminations. Of course, you had a lot of people like Best Friends, Dark Order. Aussie Open was actually in this match as well. The Lucha Bros 2.0. You name it. There was a lot of things happening in this match, but I'm not really going to go deep into it. Usually because of the fact that when it comes to battle royals, they're just, a lot of things going on at the same time, and it's very hard to keep track about what's going on. But overall, it was a pretty entertaining, I should say, tag team battle royal. But the winners of this match were Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, which ruffled a lot of feathers on social media, which I totally get. I mean, why, if you have a tag team battle royal and you have guys like Aussie Open in the match, I mean, honestly, I would have much rather had guys like either Best Friends or Aussie Open or heck, the Lucha Brothers be involved in this match rather than Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. I don't understand why Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal are in the tag team title picture, in my opinion. That's just my view, but those are your winners for the AEW Revolution Tag Team Battle Royal. And next week, we are going to be having a casino Battle Royal on AEW Dynamite to determine the fourth team that is going to be involved in the Revolution 4-way match for the AEW Tag Team titles. So your winners are Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, and they will be in the match. We get a House of Black video package, and they talk about how thousands of people talk about what we learned last week, and they feel like they see the same thing that they have been saying for months. And there's no problem. In this company, they have to address this problem, and they need to let their voices be heard. And then Brody King comes in and says the House will bring a firestorm to purify the current landscape of AEW, and the House will send its foundation built to last. And then Buddy comes in, Buddy Murphy, or I should say Buddy Matthews, and he says, before Revolution, they want to discuss their status on the AEW Trios Champions face-to-face this Friday on Rampage. A lot of people are speculating that they're going to be doing this match at the pay-per-view, which a part of me wants it, but at the same time, I don't want it. Now, it's very obvious that we all know that the Elite, their next major opponent is going to be the House of Black. But the only issue that I have is they started teasing the House of Black last week, and we're like literally less than 2 weeks away from Revolution, and you're just now going to be building towards this match. You need more build, and that's the major issue that I have with this is, look, we all know that the House of Black versus the Elite is going to be a fire-ass match, but at least you have to have some sort of progression, storyline progression, in order to get the fans invested in this match. And I don't even think AEW is really doing that, but that is just me. But overall, we do not know if we're going to be getting House of Black versus the Elite at Revolution, but we're just going to have to wait and see. We got Tony Khan's major announcement. This is one thing that I really want to talk about. Of course, Tony Khan, this was something that was a big topic throughout this past week, and I really need to talk about this because clearly people are just very dumb on the internet, and clearly a lot of fans set themselves up for disappointment. One thing I will say is there is a clear difference. There is a clear difference between the words important and huge. Tony Khan used his words very specifically. He said that this was going to be an important announcement, not a major or a huge announcement. Tony Khan's announcement. Let's talk about this whole announcement first, and then I'll get on with the nitty-gritty. But he brings in Adam Cole. And the announcement is that next month there will be a new weekly 1-hour show. And the new show, it's called AEW All Access. It is an unfiltered look at the people like Adam Cole, Britt Baker, and it's something that we won't miss. He's getting a chance to show his story and all the ups and downs, and he's very excited to share his journey at home. And he has more good news. That same night, on the night that the show debuts, he will make his in-ring return on that Dynamite. And he is damn sure that it will be the best Adam Cole he will be. And the month of March will be special because we got the All Access premiere, and Adam Cole Bay is back. So, this new show, AEW All Access, is going to be a show that is going to be debuting on March next week, right after Dynamite on TBS, on the same time slot as Power Slap, which I believe is not doing very well. But a couple of notes here, or not notes. I'm reading from the Variety. Article that dropped as soon as this announcement was made. The series titled, and I quote, AEW All Access, it is expected to debut on TBS in March, and it will follow the company's biggest stars, including Adam Cole, Dr. Britt Baker DMD, Sammy Guevara, Ty Conti, the Young Bucks, Saraya, Wardlow, Eddie Kingston, along with Tony Khan. Each episode will follow them week to week as they seek to remain at the top of the company while also exploring rivalries between them. The show will also detail to lead up to major AEW events and pay-per-views. So yeah, it is going to be basically an unscripted reality show, basically. So it's going to be kind of like Road to the Top. It's going to basically be like Total Divas. I know a lot of people do not like reality television shows, especially wrestling fans. Wrestling fans really do not like reality television shows. But if you really think about it, this is a great opportunity for AEW to expand their audience because, keep in mind, there is an audience that actually likes reality television shows. And also, another thing I want to mention is Warner Brothers Discovery, but I'll talk about that later because I really want to make a certain point here. So Tony Khan made this announcement, and he called it an important announcement. Again, people need to realize that there is a huge difference between the words important and huge. Tony Khan clearly said that this was an important, not a huge, an important announcement. Also, I get it. I get both sides of the argument. I get the fact that, yes, AEW did a low rating last week because of the NBA, I believe. They did roughly around 800,000 viewers on TBS last week. So, on hindsight, it kind of does seem like Tony Khan is, quote-unquote, is trying to get a ratings ploy or being desperate. But honestly, I do not see that being the case at all. I really don't. Not only that, my conclusion regarding this whole thing about, you know, Tony Khan clickbaiting us because of the fact that blah, blah, blah. He is trying to, you know, he's trying to get a ratings ploy because he got a low rating last week. I get it. The timing of everything is just completely off. It does look like that. But if you really think about the whole situation in hindsight, I genuinely believe it's the fans setting themselves up for disappointment. I tweeted this out right before, literally the day of this announcement was made. That, again, there's a difference between the words huge and important. So I don't understand why fans are so upset. I feel like the fans, honestly, the fans are to blame. I'm not really going to blame Tony Khan now. If you really think about it, could this announcement have been just placed on Twitter? Yes, but I don't know. It really depends. He could have easily put this announcement on social media. It didn't really have to be on Dynamite if you really think about it, but honestly, if you think about it, though, the fans really set themselves up for disappointment. I feel like I personally blame the fans because they keep on overhyping this shit constantly. And I tell these people, do not get your hopes up. But another thing that people need to understand is the fact that with this whole new all-access show that is going to be debuting on March, it clearly shows the relationship between AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery is all and good. If they're giving them an extra hour of television on TBS, clearly AEW is doing something right, and their current relationship with Warner Brothers Discovery is very good. So for all the AEW bullshitters and all the AEW haters out there, clearly this kind of ruffled a little bit of feathers with you. It clearly shows that AEW is in good hands with Warner Brothers Discovery. So, yeah, at the end of the day, this is just a good thing. Now, my thoughts on the show itself, I'm very interested. I'm very curious to see what they are going to be doing. Not only that, it kind of exposes AEW to a newer audience. And you know what? At the end of the day, isn't that what everybody wants? They want AEW to grow as a company. But then every time when AEW tries to do something to grow the company, they still get a lot of hate. I don't understand. But this is nothing but a good thing for AEW at the end of the day. We got Jon Moxley versus Evil Uno. Really good match overall. Relatively short match. It lasted like less than 10 minutes. But overall, this was a really, really, really good match. Evil Uno goes straight for the attack after Jon Moxley. We get a chop by Evil Uno on Moxley into the corner. At this point, Hangman is watching backstage. We get a chop by Evil Uno on Moxley into the corner. Hangman is watching, of course. Moxley then gains control over Evil Uno. And then we get repeated rights, or kicks, I should say, by Mox on Evil Uno. We get a couple of chops by Moxley. We get a boot by Evil Uno. And then he takes off his vest, and then he uses the vest and hits Moxley with it. We got a couple of chops by Uno into the corner, and then he takes Mox onto the other corner, and he continues to work on Jon Moxley after that. We get a chop by Evil Uno, and then Moxley fights off Evil Uno. Moxley then, takes... Moxley and Evil Uno are on the top. He tries to rip off the mask of Evil Uno, but then Moxley's on the apron, but then Uno hits a boot on Moxley, sending him to the outside. Uno then goes to the top, and then Evil Uno hits a somersault on the outside. Once they're back in the ring, Moxley retreats, but then Mox sends Evil Uno to the ring steps head first, which busts open Evil Uno. If not, we hadn't have enough blood already on the show. Moxley's in the ring. Uno then tries to get back in the ring, but then Evil Uno is busted open. Moxley then stomps onto the head of Evil Uno, but then we get repeated elbows by Moxley. Uno then takes Mox and hits a pile driver, and then he takes him again and hits a second pile driver after that. We got a cover and a near fall. He then tries to apply a sleeper hold, but then he drives his elbows on Evil Uno. After that, he transitions into the Bulldog Choke. Uno then fades, but then he gets back up, but then Moxley wraps him around with the Bulldog Choke, continuing to apply it. And then Evil Uno fades, and Moxley wins the match. But after the match, Jon Moxley does not let go of the Bulldog Choke. And then Alex Reynolds and John Silver comes in. They proceed to attack Mox, but then Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta come in. They attack the Dark Order. Hangman then comes in, and he runs to the ring, and he attacks Jon Moxley. He grabs a piece of barbed wire with his hand and hits a right hand. He sends Jon Moxley into the corner and then hits repeated rights on Mox. At this point, Mox is busted open, and Hangman tries to hit the buckshot lariat, but then Moxley retreats, and the show ends. Overall thoughts on this match, I thought this was a great match overall. Fantastic stuff. I thought Evil Uno looked absolutely great, and I loved the storyline progression when it comes to Hangman Page and Jon Moxley. A lot of people were criticizing this feud for being, too simple because, it's just based off a dumb concussion. Why are y'all making this into a storyline? Literally, the most simplest things in wrestling could easily be turned into a storyline, and you can turn it into perfection. That's what they did with this whole match, and I think the match that they are going to be having at Revolution between Jon Moxley and Hangman Page is going to be an absolute clinic, in my opinion. I'm really excited, and I thought Evil Uno looked absolutely great. But, yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review from February 22nd, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show, I really enjoyed this show for what it was. It was a great show overall, and I'm very excited to see what they do for Revolution, of course, which is going to be taking place March 5th on pay-per-view. But, yeah, that was my Dynamite review from February 22nd, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. I'd be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And, as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. But as always, it is Flamin' Rick, signing out.